on religion, do you think there will ever be a time in our future where almost nobody believes in God? Or God is not a part of the moral fabric of our society?
Yes, I do. I think it may happen after a very long time. I think it may take a long time for that to happen.
So do you think ultimately for everybody on earth, religion, other forms of doctrines, ideas could do better job than what religion does?
Yes. I mean, following truth, reason.
Well, truth is a funny word, and reason too. It's a difficult idea now with truth on the internet, right, and fake news and so on. I suppose when you say reason, you mean the very basic sort of inarguable conclusions of science versus which political system is better.
Yes. I mean truth about the real world, which is ascertainable by not just by the more rigorous methods of science, but by just ordinary sensory observation.
So do you think there will ever be a time when we move past it? Like, I guess another way to ask it, are we hopelessly, fundamentally tied to religion in the way our society functions?
Well, clearly all individuals are not hopelessly tied to it because many individuals don't believe. You could mean something like society needs religion in order to function properly, something like that. And some people have suggested that.
What's your intuition on that?
Well, I've read books on it, and they're persuasive. I don't think they're that persuasive, though. I mean, some people suggested that society needs a sort of figurehead, which can be a non-existent figurehead, in order to function properly. I think there's something rather patronizing about the idea that, well, you and I are intelligent enough not to believe in God, but the plebs need it, sort of thing. I mean, I think that's patronizing, and I'd like to think that was not the right way to proceed.
But at the individual level, do you think there's some value of spirituality? Sort of, if I think sort of as a scientist, the amount of things we actually know about our universe is a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of what we could possibly know. So just from everything, even the certainty we have about the laws of physics, it seems to be that there's yet a huge amount to discover. And therefore we're sitting where 99.999% of things is just still shrouded in mystery. Do you think there's a role in a kind of spiritual view of that, sort of a humbled spiritual view?
I think it's right to be humble. I think it's right to admit that there's a lot we don't know, a lot that we don't understand, a lot that we still need to work on. Yeah. We're working on it. What I don't think is that it helps to invoke supernatural explanations. If our current scientific explanations aren't adequate to do the job, then we need better ones. We need to work more. And of course, the history of science shows just that as science goes on, problems get solved one after another, and the science advances as science gets better. But to invoke a non-scientific, non-physical explanation is simply to lie down in a cowardly way and say, we can't solve it, so we're going to invoke magic. Let's do that. Let's say we need better science. We need more science. It may be that the science will never do it. It may be that we will never actually understand everything. And that's okay, but let's keep working on it.
A challenging question there is, do you think science can lead us astray in terms of the humbleness? So there's some aspect of science, maybe it's the aspect of scientist and not science, but of sort of a mix of ego and confidence that can lead us astray in terms of discovering the, some of the big open questions about the universe.
I think that's right. I mean, there are arrogant people in any walk of life, and sure, scientists are no exception to that. And so there are arrogant scientists who think we've solved everything, and of course we haven't. So humility is a proper stance for a scientist. Yeah. I mean, it's a proper working stance because it encourages further work. But in a way, to resort to a supernatural explanation is a kind of arrogance, because it's saying, well, we don't understand it scientifically, therefore the non-scientific religious supernatural explanation must be the right one. That's arrogant. What is humble is to say, we don't know, and we need to work further on it.
So maybe if I could psychoanalyze you for a second, you have at times been just slightly frustrated with people who have have a supernatural. Has that changed over the years? Have you become like, how do people that kind of have seek supernatural explanations, how do you see those people as human beings? As it's like, do you see them as dishonest? Do you see them as sort of ignorant? Do you see them as, I don't know? Is it like what?
No, I mean,
how do you think of
certainly not dishonest, and I mean, obviously many of them are perfectly nice people, so I don't sort of despise them in that sense. I think it's often a misunderstanding that people will jump from the admission that we don't understand something. They will jump straight to what they think of as an alternative explanation, which is the supernatural one, which is not an alternative. It's a non-explanation. Instead of jumping to the conclusion that science needs more work, that we need to actually do some better science. So I don't have, personal antipathy towards such people. I just think they're misguided.